How to Survive Until You're Published, Season 1, Episode 7. Indie Publishing with guest author Marae Good.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're super excited to have Marae. Marae Good was born and raised in Arizona, where she currently lives with her husband, 2 daughters, and their sassy Yorkshire Terrier, Butter. After an episode of crippling depression forced Marae to reevaluate her priorities, she found herself returning to an old habit, reading. Mesmerized by the world she could escape to, Marae started creating her own, and the realm of oblivion was born. When she's not writing, Marae loves to dance with her littles, run and hike in the mountains, or stay up far too late binging TV shows, most likely Vampire Diaries or Gilmore Girls. Great choices, by the way.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you on. We wanted to talk to you about indie publishing over traditional publishing, and I know that this is a questioner, that our listeners will have, that I've had, just kind of the pros and cons about that. So let's start with our first question. What led you to do indie publishing over traditional publishing?
For me, the biggest factor was the freedom, just from what I had heard, from traditional publishing, how sometimes it just seems I don't know if that's necessarily true, but how I had heard that sometimes you have a publisher to answer to, and a lot of times your choices aren't always a priority. And so to me, I'm sure you guys know, as writers, you get attached to characters and the story and stuff, and the thought of not being in charge of them really made me sad. So I think that was my biggest factor, is just being in control of my story.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did you try going down the route of traditional publishing at all?
I didn't. No, I never queried or anything, so I don't know much about the traditional publishing world very much at all. But I think when I first started writing, that was the route I was going, and I was trying to write for that with word count and everything. But then I just kind of had a change of heart. But yeah, so I don't know much about traditional publishing.
So do you feel like it allowed you to stay more genuine though to your story when you kind of made the switch in mentality and you stopped thinking, oh, I'm doing this for a traditional publisher and an editor, and these are all the requirements I need to hit?
Yeah, I would say so, because there's definitely that sense of freedom. Because now I also think I had I'm trying to think of the right word. I just also maybe didn't know a lot, so I guess I didn't realize that you had to kind of write to market. So there was kind of that, ignorance is bliss. So I just had no idea. So I'm just writing, and I'm oh, I didn't realize that you kind of sometimes have to write to the market. So I would say in that sense, yes, there was very much that freedom, because there was no I was just telling a story. There was no even thought of trying to necessarily sell it to someone.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's awesome though, because I feel a lot of times in the writing world, we do get too caught up, or at least I know I get too caught up in, oh, you need to write to market. And I feel sometimes if I get too entrenched in that mentality, I lose my story and I lose my characters and kind of why I started writing in the first place, So kind of going to the next question then, what are some of the pros? You've already talked a little bit about them. What are some of the other pros to indie publishing beyond just having complete control over your story?
I don't know, because it is very difficult. I feel it's really pushed my creativity, and it's kind of shown that I'm capable of a little bit more than I thought, just because when you go down the indie publishing, you're not just writing, you're also having to learn how to market, and you're having to learn how to make book covers or format a book. So it's kind of shown me that it's really helped me learn. Oh, I'm kind of capable. It might take me longer, but I have to learn, but I'm definitely capable of learning new things. So that's been really cool.
How is the connection to your readers? Do you feel you've had a deeper connection to your readers because of that?
Yeah, I would say so. I think so, because if someone messages me, I personally love that, and I feel a lot of times I've actually grown genuine friendships with readers who have messaged me just to talk about my book. And I don't know that's how it works. Maybe a traditional published person or however too, but maybe I almost feel maybe we're almost more approachable in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it's all yours. You've built it from the ground up. That's awesome. So what are some of the cons, the hard parts?
You're doing everything. I feel that's really hard. And one thing I've like often like thought of, and I like actually really do struggle with, is I'm not the most like confident always in my decisions, and I wish that I had like a team of someone to back me up and be like, no, that's good, or like someone else was making the decisions. I'm not like just like my personality, I'm not like the biggest like leader or like person to take like initiative, so I really do well with someone telling me what to do, and there's no one telling me what to do sometimes. So
no, I'm like totally the same way. I get so self-conscious about, I'm like, is this the right thing to do? And people would say there isn't a right answer, but I'm like, yes, there is. There's a right answer.
Yeah, sometimes you just want someone to tell you. You're like, tell me what to do.
yeah, it just makes it. So how do you get through those blocks when you're kind of like in a rut with that?
A lot of times I do talk things through with my husband, and I feel like he probably gets so tired of it, but I just like talk to him, and he doesn't even really always give a response, but like hearing it outside of my head, it helps. I feel like it helps making like writer friends who like are also kind of going through the same thing, and like they like want the best for you. So like I like it when someone can be honest with you, you know, and they're like, no, maybe not the best, or however, they're not just being nice. Like that's always the best.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Have you made a good connection with a lot of people?
I think so. Yeah, I was fortunate when I first started. I stumbled on like this writing Discord that I'm not even really part of anymore, but I had like made some friends through that, and then we've kind of like stuck together. So like that's been really nice. I think like having at least like one writing friend makes all the difference. So I'm sure you guys like you have each other. And then...
yeah, it definitely helps.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't be motivated without Megan. For sure. Yeah, that's awesome.
So what advice would you give someone starting out on the journey or like route to indie publishing?
I feel like I would say don't be intimidated. Like that was for a while I like didn't even like pursue or do anything because I was so afraid that there was like I just would see like this giant wall of everything that I had to do, and it was very intimidating. But like as I slowly started chipping away, like the internet is full of so much information, and I feel like it appears harder than it actually is, if that makes sense. Like as I do it, like now I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't need to get that stressed out. It wasn't that hard. And like YouTube, YouTube is the best source of information. There's so much stuff on indie publishing on there. I love it.
That was my next question. What's like a good resource that you've used to help?
Definitely YouTube. I think her name is MK Williams. I always go to her. I'll have to like actually send you her stuff if you want it. But yeah, she is the best.
And then just in general, like what advice would you give to someone who's like starting on the writing journey? And just give us kind of like a little bit of insight for how it was for you, just starting out and how it felt and everything.
I would say like maybe don't be afraid to make mistakes. I mean, like as you guys know, like when you write, like nothing's permanent. You can change things. And I feel like as I've talked to, because sometimes I have like people message me and they're like new writers wanting to start, and they don't know how. And like my best advice is just to start. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. I know like some people are outliners, some people aren't. Like just start with something and you can always like build up, but you can't like build from nothing. Like, or you can, but you know, like you have to start from somewhere. And so like that would be my advice. Just don't overthink it and just go, and you can always fix things. I know with like one of the first books that I wrote, I was really trying, like I swear I just kept rewriting and it kept changing because that was how I learned too. I mean, just like learn, that's how you learn and that's how you get better, and don't be afraid to make mistakes, because I feel like often we're trying to like strive for perfection and it's not possible, but you can only become better by failing.
Yeah, I'm like, I finished the 4th draft of my novel and I'm on the 5th, and I feel like I just keep banging my head against the wall, like revisiting the same things over and over again. I'm like, do I need to fix this again? You know, and just doing the same thing over and over again. You're like, am I ever going to get this right? It can be kind of discouraging sometimes.
Yeah. Well, congratulations though. That's awesome. I mean, that is major. I think they say like most people like don't even finish their first draft, and you've done 4. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah,
to kind of put it in perspective for our listeners, how many drafts did Realm of Oblivion go through, or your new one that's coming out? How many drafts did you go through with that?
The Realm of Oblivion, I feel like definitely had more. And just because I feel like I just was trying to figure out everything, and I would kind of like write things and then sometimes go back to the beginning. I couldn't give you a number. I know it's probably embarrassing high, like It was a lot. And I gave my book to a developmental editor at one point, and then I had to rewrite the entire book because it like needed to be fixed. That was a whole nother draft in itself. But I can say for this new book, my contemporary, I want to say I've had 5 drafts with it.
That's amazing, though. I mean,
pretty good.
All of it.
Do you guys write fantasy or contemporary? What do you write?
Fantasy mostly.
Fantasy. I feel because I just
fantasy
they're different. Yeah, like I feel like fantasy, it requires almost more drafts, if that makes sense, because there's so many more rooms for like plot holes and like world building and everything.
Yeah, there's I remember my first novel that I worked on. I remember like somebody asking me, so do you want it to place in the real world or do you want it to be your own world? And I'm like, well, if it's my own world, I can do whatever I want. So yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Now I'm like, now I'm like kicking myself. Like, since when did I think that would make it easier?
I was gonna just say, when I was writing my contemporary, it was annoying because like there was like real world like things I had to focus. Like I had to make sure things were legal and I had to follow like certain things. I'm like, this is annoying. Like it was way better during fantasy.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to ask where are you guys at in like your writing journeys? Is that okay?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Amy, you can go first.
Okay, yeah. So I love talking about this. No, so I started, I mean, I've been writing since I was young. But I got more seriously into it in like 2020. Oh my gosh. And I kind of kicked myself in the head. I joined a writing critique group through a group on Facebook. And little did I know, they were all published authors and wrote incredibly, incredibly well. And I had never started a novel in my life. And so I was like, oh man, this is serious stuff. I gotta like get my shit together. And so I pulled the short story that I had worked on many years ago and just started building and everything. And oh man, it was a rocky road. But it took me a whole year. I finished my first draft of that and I was like, okay, gonna put that aside and so then I started the book that I'm working on currently, and it's been about 1.5 years, almost 2 years, and I have fallen deeply in love with my story and am just very determined to give my characters a good story for themselves, because they're great characters. And so yeah, I've been going for a few years now, and I'm on my 4th draft-ish. You know, some drafts consisted of a few chapters until I was like, screw this, let's start over again. But it's been great and I feel motivated. And then when I met Megan at a writing conference. I swear we've kind of mapped out the same route and she's kept me motivated, and we both have hour-long conversations about our books to help us figure it out and everything. And so yeah,
I love that. That's awesome. What writers conference did you guys meet at?
Storymakers.
Okay, I've attended that one online. I was wondering if it was that one.
Oh, you gotta come in person. It's amazing.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
I've heard it's really good.
Yeah, if you ever can, it's amazing. It's I mean, that's what kind of where I got my kickstart was at Storymakers, and I attended my first one online. It was the 2021, but it's great. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What about you, Megan?
Yeah, so I'm in a really similar position. I started writing in 2020 because there's not really a lot else to do, and I feel like I've lost it, just over the years, because I had always written. But I've written 2 completed manuscripts, and I'm on like the 4th or whatever draft of the second one, kind of like Amy, the first one. It's tucked away, and I don't know if it's ever going to see the light of day, but that's fine. There's so much developmentally that I need to fix with it. But I found myself entrenched in like the same problem you did, where it was like, oh, I can just do whatever I want in fantasy. And then I was like, oh, actually, there's a lot that needs to go into it that I didn't want to put the effort into. But yeah, so I'm working on my 4th draft of my second novel, and then I'm hoping to start querying it soon. We're going to try the traditional route before I think about indie, because I'm not sure, honestly.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What was your experience with editors?
I've had a really good experience with editors. Definitely shop around. I found actually one editor, my developmental editor for the Realm of Oblivion, through a Storymakers group. Actually, she posted she's wonderful. Her name's Liz Lohman, and she just like published her first book. But she like posted like some holiday sale or however, and I was like, hey, I'll do that. I know, like now I like cringe. I'm like, why would you ever just pick a random person? But it ended up being like she was wonderful, like truly talented, and she should have charged way more than what she did. And so she was wonderful to work with. And then I found my editor that I work with now, like solely. And I found her on like Instagram. I think I just like typed in like editor, and then I just like picked several, and I sent like a sample of my manuscript to them. And then I just picked which one kind of like lined up with me best, because like I need someone that's going to be like straightforward with me, but like not like break my heart like in a way. And her and I really like fit well together. So that's how I was fortunate. So I would just say like shop around and don't be afraid to say no and be like, oh no, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's one thing I've always wondered. I mean, like when you go traditional, they usually will give you an editor.
Yes,
but I've always wondered. Yeah, I've always wondered too, like how if you should choose your own editor before you go to a publisher, or
I've heard. So I had a friend who is recently being now traditionally published, and I know she had her book developmentally edited, but she did not do line edits before she queried.
Oh, that's good to know, actually. Megan, that's good to know.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I don't know if that's like Bible or what, but that's what she did.
That's okay. That's good. That's a good piece of advice. Because yeah, you never know like how far you should go, because I mean, I guess it really depends on the publishing house. If you go traditional, how much you want to like dig into making it look good.
Yeah, because your agent like then has you change things too, right? Don't they usually? And however that
From
works.
what we've heard, yeah.
Yeah, it depends. I think too.
Okay.
You know,
it's a lovely answer of, oh well, it depends.
It's like we don't really know.
So I was wondering kind of what strategy you've gone with marketing when it comes to indie publishing, and like if you have any specific hints or tips, and then kind of how it's been for you in general.
Yes. So I have noticed that I have a friend who like works in marketing, but like what I've noticed too is, I mean, and like think about who you follow, or however, who you buy books from, or how you like you're attracted to them. What I've noticed is like I don't just try and sell my book. I'm also just kind of like I used to be better about it. I used to like get on my stories and talk and be like have fun, and I haven't done it in a while, but like just interact with your like followers, and like if you're kind of almost in a way selling yourself, if that makes sense. Like when I think about who I follow, like I like them as a person, and then I'm like, oh, they made this, or however, like so like if you're just like real like and raw with people, like that's what I've noticed. And I feel like there has to be a good balance of like trying to sell your stuff and then just interacting with people. So for me and myself, like I try to talk about books and like my love for books and book boyfriends and like the silly stuff like that, and then I'll try and integrate my writing and stuff into there. So I will be honest, sometimes I tend to focus a little bit too much on the books, because I kind of worry about like oversaturating and overwhelming and kind of being annoying, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah
So I definitely think just talk about your book. And I've noticed like as for sales, so you know how like people like make aesthetic reels, like I love making aesthetics of like my work in product, like I love doing that. But I've noticed when I'm just direct and I'm like, hey, here's my book, like here's some tropes in it, or however, like that's when I have my sales. Like when I just am like, here you go, like it doesn't have to be anything fancy, like almost I feel like the less fancy, like it just seems to do better. Like people just like kind of, here you go.
Yeah, like here you go, this is what you're gonna get, and see if you like it, kind of thing. Yeah, I like that.
Okay, well, we're getting close to our time, but is there anything else you'd like to tell our listeners about indie publishing or just writing in general?
I was just going to say, like, I feel like often it's easy to compare yourself to others. And like, that's something like I feel like I've struggled with. And I just always try and focus on what I'm doing and like cheer on others, but like recognize that you're different, and how you market and how you write and how you learn is your own way. And that's what I always have to remind myself not to compare myself.
Awesome.
That's great advice. Honestly, I feel like everyone needs to hear that all the time. We just want to put a plug in that your new book, The Burns We Carry, comes out this summer. So if you haven't, just watch out for that for our listeners. And then also, if you haven't read The Realm of Oblivion, you should definitely read that. Last but not least, we usually like to issue a challenge to our listeners at the end. So what challenge would you like to leave with them today?
Is it like a writing challenge or?
Yeah.
Or any kind of challenge, yeah.
Okay. I feel like, okay, I saw this challenge, or I was reading like on Pinterest where it like has like these quotes or however, and it was talking about focusing on something good. And I feel like it's so easy to like focus on the negative things or like what you're not necessarily accomplishing. So I've been trying to, when I finish like at a writing day, I write down my feelings from how I did, from like what I wrote and everything, and like something I'm proud of myself for that I accomplished that time. So I would just say to maybe sit down maybe after one of your writing sessions and just focus on something that you're really proud of yourself for accomplishing.
That is an awesome challenge. I love that. That is
I'm definitely going to steal that.
Yeah, that is perfect. Challenge accepted right there. Okay, well, thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, thank you.
Loved having you on, and we're really excited for your book to come out, and we wish you luck. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thanks. Have a nice night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening, because if you're drowning in words, so are we, and you might as well not do it alone.